Welcome. All right, let me get my stuff here. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Money Monday Conversations with your host, Dr. Marlene Phillip, trauma counselor and financial professional. So, as you come on in, share the live, share, because we're going to have a really important topic tonight. As I was sharing, let me make sure that I have my everything else that I'm sharing on YouTube. Let me make sure. So as our topic is tonight, your nervous system is making your financial decision. Your nervous system is making your financial decision. So come on in and share. I think you all will really love this topic tonight. Let's see. I'm just making sure that I am on all my Facebook, on YouTube, TikTok. All right. Welcome, guys. Money Monday Conversations. Okay, how you all doing? When you come on in, share the live, say where you're from. And let's get into it. So, okay, yep, here I am. All right, guys, so tonight's topic is something that I talked about a lot, but not on here. When I talk about this, like when I'm doing workshops, when I am working with my clients one-on-one, I talk about your relationship with money. Because this is a topic where I found a lot of people have a lot of triggers. They get triggered by money, and it's not because they hate money, let's put it that way, or dislike it or whatever, but it's because there's a story there. Your nervous system is making your financial decisions. That's the conversation that we're having tonight. And what I mean by that, many of you or many of us, we are not just managing money. We are not just stewarding money. We are reacting. Some people are reacting to survival more when it comes to money, right? And that is because if growing up, money was not something that you talk about in a positive way, then your money story was trained in your body. Your money story was trained in your body first. So like the tension that you felt when bills come up, the argument, the pressure to figure it out, the shame of not having enough, all of that, right? All of that can cause trauma responses. And I will share some of that tonight as we, go over this thing, because I've even seen this when it comes to couples, right? And one of these days, I'm probably going to talk about financial infidelity. That's a huge one, because I had a couple who I had to work through that with financial infidelity. Like, what is that, right? Anyway, so money is not just numbers. Money is, when you hear the word money, what comes to your mind? What do you feel in your body, right? Money, it's a nervous system experience. Your money story, like I said before, was first shared in your body. You first felt it in your body before you heard the word budgeting, before you heard the word investing, before you heard anything when it comes to money. Your body felt it first. And that's why people keep putting things off. They keep putting, they know they have to make certain decisions when it comes to money, but they feel overwhelmed. They feel as though if I face it, I'll feel behind, or they feel as though if I talk about it, I'll feel judged, right? So they avoid the bank accounts, they avoid the conversations that they have to make, those hard conversations, right? They postpone the plans that they have to, to make or follow through when it comes to financial decisions. because avoidance give them a sense of relief. And that relief can feel as freedom. It can feel as though, okay, if I'm not ready to change this thing yet, when it comes to money, then I don't really need to talk about it. And this is a fact. Like, this is something that people actually feel, and this is what they go through. Like, money can be a trigger, but like I said earlier on today, money triggers the same survival circuits as danger. Isn't that something? Like, when you think about it, right? Money triggers the part of the brain that signals danger. For some people, that money trigger. And your brain doesn't separate money stress. So if you're feeling stressed out when it comes to money, the same part of your brain that is feeling stressed when it comes to money is the same part of your brain that feels danger, that experience danger. That's your amygdala. It don't know the difference. Our brain don't know the difference between what is real and what is not real. All it knows is what meaning we assign to these experiences or to these feelings. It don't know the difference. So your nervous system reacts to financial pressure the same way it reacts to a threat, as if a bear is running you down, right? If a grizzly bear is chasing you, those same experiences, or if you're scared somebody's chasing you, or you, whatever, if you're in the house and it's dark and you hear some noise or whatever and you get scared, like, your nervous system reacts to financial pressure the same way it reacts to a threat. That's huge, right? And that's because if growing up for you, money meant argument, instability, not enough, right? Scarcity. There's always argument over, we don't have enough. There's a lot of pressure when it comes to money. There's a lot of shame, a lot of silence. Nobody talks about this. Your body learned that money is not safe. And these are things that we grew up with these experiences, and it's so embedded in our subconscious mind, in our nervous system, and we react to it without even realizing that when it's time for us to make decisions, financial decisions, and we keep putting it off, or we are afraid to open the bills or to open the bank account, and we avoid, or we use the shopping as therapy. All of these things are learned behavior in our formative years for the most part, right? So like I said, if you grow up in an environment where nobody talks about money, or if they do talk about money, it was argument, it wasn't healthy, your body learned that money is unsafe. So what do you do? What do you do when you grow up? And put stuff in the comments if you have questions, whatever, right? We're gonna have a conversation. We're talking tonight, right? Because there are four trauma responses. So when you look at your bank account, or when you think about budgeting, or you think about investing, you talk about finances, you think about all these things, your nervous system goes into these four responses: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. If you have a money wound, and that is a money wound is really you growing up and you have like really bad experiences, you were traumatized by money. And it doesn't have to be a big thing. That's the thing with trauma, right? Trauma affects each and every one in different ways. All right. Somebody can have a car accident and can be extremely traumatized to the point where it affects them when they're driving. and someone else can experience that and nothing, right? Somebody can grow up in a home where there's a lot of argument and shame and silence around money, and that can be very, didn't sit well with their nervous system, and somebody else that's probably like nothing to them. But there are signs, right? There are signs in our behavior that tells if this is affecting us. And the fourth trauma responses are fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Your body is trying to protect you when you fight, when you flight, when you freeze or fawn when it comes to around money. So money for many people feels like danger. And me getting into the financial industry, I understand that because with my trauma background, and now me talking to people about insurance, life insurance, talking to people about retirement, how to protect their income, how to, get cash value insurance, the annuities, all these different things, I can tell. That's why sometimes I have to let people come to a place of safety first before we do that part, because they can be very overwhelmed by that conversation. And I can tell because again, that's my field, that's my background. So I can tell when someone they have like a fight, flight response, fawn or freeze response. Avoidance, right? A lot of avoidance is a flight response when you avoid the things that you're supposed to do to protect yourself, your loved ones. We avoid these things. We know we're supposed to do it, but we avoid it. Why we avoid it, right? Again, always remember it's a programming that is running the show. When you think you are making the decision, it's your programming that is making decisions, because we are all programmed. Between the time we were born, our formative years is from birth to 7, approximately 7. It's called our formative years because that's where the programming is installed and calcified. And now as we get older, we are still operating from that template, from that formative years. So we are grown chronologically and we think we are making decisions. We think we are the one who is running the show, but our programming is. And whatever that programming is what you learn from your parents, from your environment, your school, your church, wherever, wherever you were, and the people who influence your life, what you see on television, what you hear from your parents or from people around, they all influence us into who we are today, unless we decide to see those patterns or recognize recognize the patterns and break it. And it's very hard to do that just like that, right? Because a lot of times we can be aware of these things, but may not necessarily know the how to rewire those neural pathways, because it's neural pathways, right? When you keep hearing the same thing over and over and over again, you are forming you're creating new neural pathways, and that becomes now your program. Think about you just start driving a car for the first time. It can be challenging, but as soon as you start to do it with repetition, it becomes second nature. It's the same thing. But what is your money story? What is the story? And because this is a very sensitive topic, because not for me, because I'm not afraid to talk about money, right? But it's sensitive for a lot of people because, again, you have to ask yourself why. If I could talk about a television show, I can talk about this light, I could talk about anything and not be triggered. But when it comes to money, some people, when you talk about that, they get tense. That is your story. That is feedback. Like these feelings that you're experiencing in your body, when someone mentioned that, it is feedback for you to take and ask and sit with yourself and reflect on it, right? Why do I feel this way? Why do I avoid? Right? Why do I freeze? Why do I shut down? Why do I feel overwhelmed? Right? When I know I have to do these things to set myself up. So, what is your money story? You can ask yourself that. What is your money story? Because your money story was trained in your body before it was in your mind, right? What is your money story? If you're asking questions I can't see yet, but I can probably go and I'll check after, right? What is your money story? Before you had words, like I said, savings, before all of these things, you have felt tension in your home, tension, stress when the bills come, fear when things were uncertain, right? Pressure to be responsible too early. That was me, having pressure, experiencing pressure. Guilt around asking for money. That was me also, because I was shamed for doing that. And let me tell you how powerful this money story is, right? So I remember around 9 years old asking my father for a shoe for school, right? And I was shamed about about asking for the shoe. Do you know how that affected me? I didn't even realize that affected me so deeply until probably like a year ago when God showed me that. I didn't even know that. And that experience from 9 years old drive my behavior into being hyper independent. That was just one of it. Where to the point where I said I will never in my life ask anybody for help. That was subconscious. And how it showed up in my life was me doing the things like overworking myself. It showed up in my life also as I can give, but I cannot accept help. So I was a good giver, but a horrible receiver. Horrible receiver. I felt awkward. I felt ashamed. I felt like the ground could open me up. Like if I have to ask for help, that was the worst thing out. Not realizing that was the story my little 9-year-old brain told itself back then. You see the thing with when you have you're a 9-year-old child, your prefrontal cortex is not developed until you're 25 years old. That's without trauma. And your prefrontal cortex is responsible for rational thinking, logical thinking. It's called the executive brain because it's responsible for making decisions and thinking on that level, right? Your brain is not developed at 9. So whatever the experience is at that time, is I will be giving that experience meaning from a 9-year-old perspective, which is going to be is me, because children take everything personally, right? So, I mean, I don't know what my father was thinking, or maybe that's just how he was, but I took it on myself and say, you know what, that embarrassment that I got is because of whatever, and I will never in my life put myself in that position again to ask anybody for help, because asking for help equals embarrassment, it equals hurt, it equals shame. It wasn't safe for me, right? So my nervous system stored those moments just like your nervous system. And again, these are subconscious programming that I didn't know was driving my life, was making decisions for me, right? With the things I was finding myself doing. When you think that you are the one who making the decisions, again, is the little girl or the little boy in you that is making those decisions. Because what programming is running the show what programming is really running the show, right? And that is why we need to be self-aware. But not only self-aware, but what am I going to do when I know this information? What did I do when this was, when God revealed that to me? I took it and I said, God, okay, we're going to rewrite this story because this is not my truth today. Like, I don't want to be driven or living my life through the lenses of a 9-year-old, right? So I had to acknowledge that and then change it, rewrite the story. So now, as an adult, when money comes up, your body remembers before your mind thinks. And that's why people say, I don't know why I do this, or like, I feel the urge to go and shop, and then I have regrets because they're looking for a dopamine hit. The same brain, the same part of the brain that rewards, like, okay, think about addiction. Same part of the brain that people get addicted with the highs, and they keep searching for that high, is the same part of the brain that you get when you buy something. It's like a reward. It's the same thing. So you have to ask yourself why, like, I know what to do, but I don't do it. I keep putting it off. Why? The story is in your nervous system. That's where the story is. Your body learned money before your brain understood money. It is in your nervous system. That's the key for you to think about. Like, you don't procrastinate because you don't care. You don't put it off because you don't care. You put it off because your nervous system feels overwhelmed. Your nervous system feels unsafe. That's why you don't schedule the appointment. That's why you don't start the investment. You don't ask the questions. You could hear all the information about financial literacy and still be in the same situation. It's not that there is no information around. It is avoidance, because avoidance gives temporary relief. The brain says, I don't want to look at that. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with that. That's a nervous system response, right? And that's deep, guys. Like, that's so deep. Like, and this is why this stuff like this is not something you can just, get up one day and say, oh, okay, I'm over it. You have to sit and ask yourself some of these questions. You really have to ask yourself, what did money feel like in my house growing up? What did money feel like in my house growing up? Like seriously, what did money feel like in my house growing up? Because a lot of people talk so much negative things about money, and they want some. The same people who talk negatively about it is the same people who need it the most. But that's they project. It's a projection, because we tend to project our insecurities onto other people to justify ourselves and what we are experiencing in the moment. So ask yourself, what did money feel like in your house, in my house growing up? When you think about money, what do you feel in your body? But you got to sit with yourself when you ask these questions, because a lot of times we don't sit with ourselves to feel what we're feeling. We don't want to feel it. Like somebody who I was counseling and shopping, like she would use shopping as therapy because she's trying to fill a void. She was trying to fill a void that was there, and she didn't realize that, she would have these feelings and then shop And then after she get that dopamine hit, that high, come crashing all down. Here comes the regret. Here comes the buyer's remorse. And then the next day I want to go again, because again, that is trying to fill a void. So whatever money meant for her in her life, she was trying to soothe it with shopping. And there are people who say things like, you know what, I'd never had when I was younger, so I'm going to have it all now. And they just splurge, they don't steward well. And then there's the opposite of some people who will start to hoard. All of that is trauma responsive. Hoarding is a trauma response. Overspending is a trauma response. They all are. Because what's the motive? The motive behind why we do what we do, our behavior. If you pay attention to your behaviors, to your patterns, they're going to always show you, right? So, do you avoid money conversations? If you avoid money conversations, be honest and real with yourself. Why? Some might say, well, I don't like to talk about money because no, it's a reason. Money is neutral. Why? I can talk about this cup. I can talk about this bottle and don't feel anything. Why am I feel so uptight when it comes to money? That's feedback. Listen, your brain will always try to tell you something different and will always try to talk you out of something. But you see, your body always keeps the score. Your body will remember what your brain tries to forget. Your body will always remember what your brain tries to forget. Because your brain is going to try to rationalize and to talk you out of certain things, but your body, that's why you have to listen to your body. When you hear money or when you hear something around money or some type of thing, pay attention to your body. What is this saying to me right now? Because that's the truth. Not what your brain is trying to tell you. It's what your body is feeling. So do you feel anxious when you look at your bank account? Do you put financial things off even when you know you shouldn't? That's your money story. That's your nervous system talking. And that's your nervous system running the show. Right? And this is why financial literacy for me is not alone is not enough. Financial literacy alone is just one part. I mean, I teach it now I'm doing it now this Thursday, so I would like you to come on. It's on Zoom though, it's not on here. I do it on Zoom. So I decided to do it every Thursday. And I realized that you can teach someone numbers, you can teach them investments, you can teach them all of the things. But if their nervous system feels unsafe, they are not going to act. I'll do it later. I'll do it later. Or I have to think about it. I'm not ready yet. All of those things, that has nothing to do with what they're really feeling. It's avoidance. It's avoidance. I don't have enough. I'll wait until things are better. That is avoidance, because like I said before, avoidance is a temporary relief. Today never comes. It's always later. It's always I'm going to think about it. It's always I'm not ready. It's always something. That is because your nervous system is running the show. Your body doesn't feel safe making financial decisions. So you're stuck. People get stuck. Whenever your nervous system doesn't feel safe making those financial decisions, you are going to stay stuck. You are going to come up with every single excuse in the book because your nervous system is trying to protect itself. And some of you really want to make the decision. But again, you feel overwhelmed. Listen, I was there. That was me. Oh, miss avoidance. And the crazy thing is, I'm not crazy, but crazy. That was my attachment style. That was my attachment style. I had an avoidant attachment style in relationships, and that was formed when I was a child. How we do anything is how we do everything. So I had an avoidant attachment style, and that trickled over into my financial decisions, my finance, like how I handle my finances. It trickled over how I work, how I connect with people. It trickled over because how you do anything is how you do everything. Right? Like it's mind blowing when you sit and think about these things. And this is why I love to talk about it. And I love to sit back and watch patterns, because patterns won't lie. Somebody could tell you something, but the pattern is telling you something else. Believe the pattern. Because anybody could say anything, right? Anybody could say anything. Believe the pattern. Patterns never lie. Because that's your behavior. Sometimes we say what we want to do. We hope to do it, but our behavior will always override. Because like I always say, no amount of conscious thinking or doing can override the subconscious mind, because the subconscious mind runs the show 95% of the time. And consciously, it's only 5%. How are you going to override your subconscious programming? It's impossible unless you reprogram your mind through rewiring those neural pathways. And to rewire that takes effort. Just like if you're driving a car for the first time, or if you're reading like if you're in school and you're reading an article for the first time, but every time you keep reading it over, repetition, it becomes easier, because now you're creating new neural pathways. So that's why it's so difficult for some people to change, because the comfort zone, the body, your brain is going to fight you, because the brain loves what's predictable. It don't like the unknown. That's why a lot of people they want change, but they just sit back and they don't do anything, or they start and then they stop. Like we are in the 3rd month of the year, and I'm sure there are many people talk about their, they had the New Year's resolutions or whatever. What's going on with that? Ask how many of them stayed on it or still on track. Because they're trying to override a subconscious programming with conscious planning. Never work. Like if you understand how the brain works, more willpower is not the way to go. Not more willpower. That's not going to change the situation, my friend. You got to create new neural pathways through neuroscience, neuroplasticity. You got to rewire your brain. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Be ye transformed. A lot of Christians read that scripture. What does that even mean? You will be transformed when you renew your mind. Because when you change your mind, you change your life, your behavior, your habits, right? And how do you change this? You have to transform it, but how do you transform your mind? You have to use neuroscience, neuroplasticity. That's the only way. You have to rewire those programmings. those thinking. That's the only way. Be transformed. And once you do that, change your mind, change your life. Because when you change your mind, you're going to change your habits. Everything. A lot of times we try to change the habits. That's not the habit, is the behavior. But the behavior stems from a mindset. And the mindset came from a set of beliefs. So your belief system came from where? Your environment, what you heard, what was planted inside of you. That's where your belief came from people, from external stuff, all kinds of nonsense. And that was planted in you. And then after you keep hearing it over and over again, it became your belief. You took on other people's beliefs and made it yours. That's why you have a difficult time doing something that you want to do, because you tell yourself, I can't do it because somebody told you you can't do it. Somebody called you dumb or stupid or whatever. And you took on their belief and made it yours. And because you did that, it formed your mindset. And you're operating now on autopilot 95% of the time. Our behaviors is not what we change. We got to go deeper than that, because the behavior is just a symptom of an underlying cause. The behavior are just the symptoms of an underlying cause. So you want to go back to the root cause of why I am this way, why I'm doing it, and not from a negative perspective. I did this with myself. It was one of the most, listen, it's one of the best things I've ever done for myself, was to sit with myself and question my behavior, not from a place of criticism, but from a place of curiosity. I got curious as to why I was behaving this way, why I was doing the things I was doing. I got very curious why I respond that way, or why I didn't respond that way, or why, like, just ask myself why. But again, not critical, because a lot of times when you all ask yourself those questions, you are judgmental. You judge yourself harshly, and your brain don't want that, right? So you're making it worse for yourself when you do that. You want to be kind, compassionate, gentle with yourself, and ask yourself those questions. Just be curious, and the answer will come. And I ask myself those questions, like, okay, why I did that? You know, because there's a root cause. Like, we don't just do things out of nowhere. Like, something is driving, and of course the mindset, right? The mindset behind everything is driving our behavior. That's why I will not use willpower to change my behavior. Like, if I want to change a habit today, I am not going to use willpower. Because guess what? I'm going to start off really strong. I'm going to burn out in no time. I have to go back and go back and negotiate with my brain and talk this thing through and get to understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. And then rewrite that story. Because there's a story behind everything we do. And then rewrite that story and then start from there. So if I'm telling you, like, this thing is, yeah, but it's beautiful. But anyway, going back to the financial part, you have any questions? If you have questions, I can see, right? I can see your questions. But I'll be sure to answer them. But let me wrap up now. So, yes, this is why I do what I do. You know, that's why when I talk to people about finances, we don't just talk about numbers. We don't just talk about investing or savings or life insurance, we talk about the story. We talk about the patterns. We talk about why your nervous system reacts the way it does around money. Because that is the story. Like for real, that's the story. Once your body feels safe, you can finally make decisions. You can make good decisions with clarity, not with fear. You're not making decisions with fear, because when you feel tense and overwhelmed, you might either make decisions, but you may not make the right decision. You know, like how they have those fear-based marketing urgency thing, fear of missing out, all this kind of stuff. Yeah, they tap into people's amygdala, the fear center part of the brain. And that's why after you make a decision from fear, you have a lot of regrets. You don't want to do that, right? So once the body feels safe, you're able to make a better decisions. And that's when people really are ready to actually build something. So that's what I do, like I said. And one of the things I will share with you tonight, because I want to close off on time. There are five-step solutions that I can share with you that are going to help change your money decisions from nervous system mode to wise stewardship. So the first thing I would say is to notice the pattern in your body, right? So before you fix your budget, before you talk about money, before you do all of that, you want to identify your body's response. What happens when you check your account? Do you feel tight in your chest, headache, numb? Do you avoid? Do you have, or you over control, you overspend, you overgive, right? Because your behavior is a clue. It's not a character flaw, it's a clue. The second thing you want to do is name the money story behind the reaction. Money reaction usually is attached to a belief. There will never be enough. If you believe that, you're going to be hoarding and hoarding, saving everything instead of putting it where it can grow, right? But you save it in there, and guess what? Bam, something happened, and then all gone, right? So if you think that there will never be enough, that's a belief, and you will react based on that belief. If you think that if I invest, I'll lose, that's a belief. If I say no, I'll disappoint people, that's a belief, right? So what did money mean to you in your house growing up? I asked you that question earlier. So the first thing you want to do, like I said, the first step, notice the pattern in your body. Secondly, name the money story behind the reaction. And the third thing you want to do is regulate before you decide. No big money decisions while you are dysregulated, right? You don't want to do that. That's going to cause a lot of regret and a lot of remorse later on. The fourth thing, because I want to give you 5. The fourth thing you want to do is make one small, safe-based money action. It doesn't have to be anything huge, right? It doesn't have to be all of that. Create one bill, or let me say, not create one bill. Write down 3 expenses that you can reduce, or list your top 3 money goals. You can start there, right? And the 5th thing is to build a simple plan and have accountability. A plan should be clear, realistic, and repeatable. So what's coming in, what's going out, what you're paying down, what you're investing, even if it's small, right? And then have support, then follow through. So if you want help identifying your money story, regulating your stress response, and building a clear path for your life, that's what I do. You all know where to find me. I'm always on social media, on Facebook, right? How long does it take? You can start today. You can start today. New habits usually take weeks of consistency. Real stability builds over months. Don't rush it. You don't have to rush it. It's not just about the numbers. We are retraining your nervous system to handle money with peace. Because if you can't handle what you have now, how could God expand you? How could you get expansion? How could He give you more if you don't have the capacity to hold what you have now? How big is your capacity? right? All right, so 7:58. Any questions? Let me see. If not, I'm gonna go. All right, let's see here. Something on YouTube. All right, guys, you'll have a good night. Because like I said, I don't want to stay on here too long. I just wanted to come on and share that with you all. Is your nervous system running the show? Is your nervous system running the show? All right. You'll have a good night. If you have questions, put it in the comments, and I will respond to you when I see it. All right. Have a good night.